English. My name is Olivia and we have made it. It is New Year's Eve. Where the hell has this year gone? Has anyone seen it? Because a minute ago it was January and now we're on the last day of 2019, the last day of the decade. And I'm about to start talking to you about my favourite books of 2019. It's going to be a good one, right? I had so much trouble putting this list together. Not so much the kind of top end of the list because I had my group of my main favourites from this year, so they kind of took at the top of the list. But going down the list, there were so many books I've enjoyed this year from different genres, from different writers, things I didn't think I'd read, things I thought I'd read, thought I'd like, and I adored, things I didn't think I'd like. It's so wide and so varied, but I do just want to get straight into it because I can't wait to tell you about these books. Just to preface before I start going into these books, I have got some honourable mentions, then I have got a top 10. Within that top 10, they are all books that I have read this year but have not necessarily been published in 2019. You get me? So because I'm more interested in what I read this year than when it was published. Some of them it will be obvious that they've been published this year. Also what I have done, for example, there are, let me look up my notes very quickly, there are a couple of series in here where I've read the whole series this year and I've adored all of them equally. So what I've done is rather than count them as separate books, I've counted them as one book as a series. So for example, there are there are 4 series on here that all have either at least 2 to 3 books. So I have counted them as one rather than individuals. I will talk about which of the individual books in the series I adored the most, but just so you know, okay? Should we get going? Oh my god, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to talk. Let's start with honourable mentions, and this part of the video could probably be bigger than any top 10, top 20, top 30, top 40, top 50. But I wanted to just shout out some books that either surprised me this year or I really enjoyed but didn't quite make the top 10 this year. Just some things that really stuck out to me, but they just missed the top 10. Okay, we're going to talk about American Royals by Catherine McGee, the most amazing kind of YA romance drama story about what would have happened in America if there was never a president but there would have been a king, and that king's modern day descendants. It is, trust me, if you don't like romance, stay away from it because essentially it is like the most epic cheesy reality show romance drama that you can possibly wait. I think book 2, I want to say it's called American Royals Majesty or Your Majesty, and it's out in 2020 and I can't wait for it. Another book that I really enjoyed that gets an honourable mention is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter. I think I said that right. This is a book in verse about Dean's own experiences going through kind of facing religion, facing sexuality, and eventually becoming this amazing drag performer called The Black Flamingo. But again, a bit like last year, one of my favourite books of last year was The Poetex by Elizabeth Acevedo. This kind of just opened my eyes to so many different things and I just absolutely adored it. Another honourable mention would probably have to be, it's a non-fiction book and a collection of essays called It's Not About the Burqa, edited by Mariam Khan. Now, where I work, you will know I work with students 16 to 18 years old and I work in the library. A lot of my students are from Muslim backgrounds, so any chance I get to learn more about them and kind of what the expectations are of them and kind of things they have to deal with that I might not have to deal with, I always take. And this got advertised to me. I think I saw it in a bookshop in Birmingham Town Centre and I picked it up. I thought, oh my god, it's going to be so good. And it's one of the most captivating things I've ever read. There's kind of, you know, to do with Muslim Islam and feminism. There's kind of about the traditions of face veils and things, and just basically what it's like, particularly for women, to live in this modern world and to make it people aware who maybe didn't know about things they should know. I found it so eye-opening. I found it so brilliant. The editor, Mariam Khan, is a stunning young woman who is just out of this world brilliant. So again, that's another one I loved as well. And just another little cheeky mention for Book Love by Debbie Tung. Now, I met Debbie Tung. She actually came into the library where I work to speak to my students. It's the first time she'd ever done a school visit. She's also done an amazing she's a graphic designer, but she's done another book called A Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an introvert story, which is so, look up, you can relate to it so much. But this year her book was Book Love, and essentially it's a little graphic novel professing about all the things that we love, book lovers love in the world, and it's just precious and adorable, and if you haven't looked it up, please go and look it up. Debbie is amazing. She had her first baby this year and she's just wonderful. Last one I want to mention because it's one of the books I've just most finished reading, and yeah, I want to mention it. With the Fire and High by Elizabeth Acevedo. Elizabeth Acevedo can do no wrong for me. She wrote the Poet-X, which was on my top 10 of last year, and I loved this. With the Fire and High is her first novel kind of in full prose, because Poet-X was written in verse, and it's just brilliant. You've got the kind of the day-to-day trials and tribulations of Timon and Money, and kind of how she's trying to get through school. She's trying to manage, you know, kind of her young life versus being a mom. There's chances to go to Europe, and even me, who is 35 in 2 months, less than 2 months, could relate to that story and the kind of facing obstacles and getting over it. If you haven't picked it up, get on it. Okay, Elizabeth Acevedo can do no wrong for me. Her third book, I'm not sure if it's going to be prose or verse, but it's called Clap When You Land, is out in either May or June. Yeah? Right, that's the honourable mentions. Let's now get into my top. Coming in at number 10 on my best books of 2019 is actually the first part of a series that I read this year, and I was introduced, or it was brought to my attention by the wonderful Reagan over at Peruse Project. I'll link her down below, and that is the Keeper of the Lost Cities series by Shannon Messenger. This is a middle grade fantasy series. I can't get my words out today. Centered around a young girl who has lived in the regular world all her life, but one day is taken away to this new magical world where she actually finds out that she's also elvish. I think it's elvish. But then there's fun and frolics, there's drama, there's adventure, there's romance, there's cheekiness. Think if Harry Potter was set in a world with elves. There's a magic school, there's that little group of friends, there's the adventures, there's doing things they shouldn't be doing. There is all of that jazz. I am 3 books into this series. It currently sits at, I want to say 8 books or 9 books. I think one is due out. The most recent one is, I think it's book 8 has just come out. And I am 3 books in, and we've kind of got to the end of the first story arc, if you like, of this friendship group before they kind of go on the next step in their story, which is going to take us into the next 3. I own all of the books apart from the last one, so actually I really can't wait to get stuck in with this. But yes, Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I highly recommend you pick it up. Number 9 on my top 10 of the top 10 best books of 2019 list is actually a book that I have heard nobody talk about. I think I came across it on a list of diverse YA recommendations for this year, although I think it kind of classes as middle grade. And I think this is also the author's debut work. That is The Weight of Our Sky by Hannah Alkaf. It talks about it kind of is set in Asia. I believe it's in the Philippines. There's a love story. It's about oh God, I haven't got my words there, I'm sorry. It's about identity, it's about standing up for what you believe in. It's got kind of a lot of the hate you give vibes, but from a point of view of someone who maybe doesn't have the confidence that Star has right now. And actually it was really, I kind of picked it up expecting a good read, but I absolutely loved it, and I shout about it. We've had it in our college library, our library ever since, and my students absolutely chow down on this book. Hannah Alkaf is definitely one author. If you haven't read this, please go and pick it up and give her a shout out. I haven't seen if she's got a new book coming yet, but I am very, very interested in it. But yes, The Weight of Our Sky by Hannah Alkaf. Brilliant read. Number 8 on my top 10 books of the year list goes to the first book in what actually is a 4-book series that, to me, excuse me, my legs are going to sleep, just cross my legs on the floor, to me is classic YA. Certainly classic dark YA. And it's book 1 of a series. I've read the first 3 books in the 4-book series. I've got book 4 to read. But the one I'm particularly going to shout out here is the first one, 3 Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. This was just everything dark and gothic and atmospheric and just everything I wanted it to be, and then some. I didn't, twists, turns, action, magic, creatures, curses, he said, she said, romance, should they, shouldn't they, will they, won't they? It's just everything. The basic idea of 3 Dark Crowns is that on this island, the island of Fembir, every year there is always a queen. It is a matriarchy, is that the right word? And the queen will always give birth to triplets. When they are born, they each will have magical powers. They are then swept away by royal kind of or higher class society families who also have those magical powers, and they are brought up learning those powers with those families on condition that at age 16 the three triplets are brought back together and must battle to the death, and the one sister that survives becomes the queen. Although the undisputed queen. The sisterly bond in this is brilliant, but what I loved in this, it gave me the kind of similar vibes to Caraval in that it was just the drama and the twists and turns, and you're kind of reading the book and you're going, oh no, don't do that, no, don't do that, turn a few pages, oh damn it, she did that, oh that's not going to be good. It just felt so involved with it. I think it says how much I enjoyed it that actually I've read the second book 2 and book 3 in the series, and I've got book 4, which is the last one in the series. I was going to say trilogy, quadrilogy series. 5 Dark Fates, which I'm really interested to see where it goes. It might also give you a clue to what happens in the story, to the fact that there's 4 books and they battle at the end of the first book. I'm not going to say anything more than that. But really a fabulous, fabulous read. If you haven't picked this up, I highly urge you to. Kendara Blake just has this skill with that kind of spooky, gothic, mystery kind of just being really uncertain and not sure what's going on. It's brilliant, and I just absolutely loved it. Swooping in at number 7 on my top 10 books of the year list is one that, quite frankly, on paper, I should have adored it. It was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I should have adored it, and I did. A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This book, and it's just so good. Let's get back to that. I'm calmed down. Harper is our Belle-esque character here, and she lives in kind of modern day Washington DC. She suffers with cerebral palsy. So actually there is a slight kind of disability there, but what I like about it, and what Bridget Kemmerer, who's the author, has done with this, is that Harper's disability never stops her from doing what she wants to do. That's the first thing I love about this book. The first thing is Beauty and the Beast retelling. Second, fabulous representation, disability representation. Thirdly, Harper is magically taken one day to this world where, by Commander Grey, who is Prince Ren, or the Beast's, it's obvious, right-hand man, and he's taken to this kingdom where this creature, this beast, is essentially terrorising the village. You go on to learn, the fact if it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, it's not going to be a surprise to you to say that actually Ren is the beast who's kind of destroying his land. And it is essentially the slow burn romance between Ren and Harper, just like Beauty and the Beast in the film, and it made my heart so happy. Beauty and the Beast is one of probably my joint favourite Disney film of all time, so to see it kind of done like this, and actually there was a load of nods to the original story. There was actually lines that I'm sure were in the original animated Disney film, and I was like, it's so good. But it was another level, because it wasn't just that, it was more than that. And I just absolutely loved it. I think I read it in one sitting, and this was like, I think it was February when I read this, and I have been absolutely dying for the sequel, because the end of A Curse So Dark and Lonely, oh lad, if you know, you know, I was floored. My mouth was on the floor. But that means since February 2019, I have been absolutely dying for the follow-up, which is called A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and is out in about 2 weeks. And I'm rubbing for it, I'm rubbing. Bridget Kemmerer this is the first book of hers I've read, but I'm absolutely desperate to read more of her backlist, because everyone I know speaks highly of Bridget Kemmerer. So she's definitely an author I'm going to look out for more in 2020. Number 6 is in the book from another author that I don't believe I've read from before, but the kind of synopsis on this drew me in, and it was another one that hit me right in the heart, and I sobbed reading this book. I absolutely sobbed. Thankfully, I was had a copy of this as part of the June Illuma Crate box, and that was Birthdate by Meredith Russo. The tale is a tale of two guys who were born in the same hospital, their moms were on the same ward, and essentially every year, no matter what they're doing, I think they live in the same town, but they always spend their birthdays together. So it starts at age 13, and every chapter is the following year. So it's like 13, and I think it's through to 18. And oh, this just made made me sob in all the best ways. Oh, it just hurt my heart. You have one of the main characters that is having, you know, issues kind of identifying and potentially, you know, actually thinks they might be choosing to live as a girl. You have the other one that can't see it, but then you've got pressures from family. You've got kind of expectation. You've got, should it be this? Should it be that? Should they be as close as they are considering they're teenage boys? No. And it's just the most beautiful thing. I know this is appearing on a number of, certainly here in the UK, it's appeared on a lot of book awards lists for kind of best of 2019, and I can so justify it. I so see it, and I'm praying it gets to kind of final list to do, because it is such a beautiful book, and for the message it gives about being your true self. I'm getting a little bit emotional when I'm talking about this. Being your true self, being your best you. It is a book I think everybody should read. This is another book, as soon as I put it in the library where I work, I have not been able to keep it on the shelves. But that to me is a wonderful thing, because that means the young people who I work with are really engaging with this story, and I just love it, and it's just amazing. And if you haven't read it, please go and get yourself a copy. This is a book that needs to be out there in the wider world and talked about a lot more. It's just so good. Okay, I've composed myself. We're good. I've composed myself after talking about Birthday, but it's just about to start again when I talk about book number 5 on this list. It is from probably 5 upwards that I really got stuck on where to place some of these books. So no, if you take out probably my top 1, top 2, top 3, I would quite happily put any book from now on as my favourite of the year. But I've had to try and put them in some kind of order. And I've kind of gone, not necessarily based on critical levels, I think these were all 5. They were all either 4 to 5 stars, but I've gone on enjoyment level, and I've enjoyed them all, but some have different enjoyment types than others, which will become a bit clearer in a little bit, particularly when you get to see my number 1 choice of the year. But let's talk about number 5, okay? And just like Birthday, this, for all the best reasons, ripped up my heart this year. Another debut author, that is Red, White and Royal Blue, by Casey McQuiston. This was, in the first half of 2019 on BookTube, the most hyped book I've ever seen, and my queen Chelsea Dolling Reads I think was hyping this from about February, and I also remember I think it didn't come out here till about May or June, and I read it for the Contemporary-a-thon in, was it June or July was the previous round of the full round of the Contemporary-a-thon. Yeah, I read it in about June or July, and it was one of those that it kind of gets super duper hyped, but it is damn worth the hype. It was amazing. Let me just to give you a preface, this is the love story between the first son of the female American president and the Prince of England. So they first meet having to go on kind of royal duties and official events. There's a bit of drinking, there's a bit of trouble causing. It is kind of this enemy to lover angsty romance, and they are just the most perfect pair. It is absolutely ridiculous. It really is. And actually there's something a little bit funny as well. I was like, oh, Casey McQuiston, you daddy girl. Which I just loved every single part of it. I think the relationship element of it just was so endearing to my heart. I was like, I need to protect them. I just need to look after them and protect them. That's also won't be the last time you hear me say that. I just felt the need to love them and protect them. I thought, I want to be friends with them. I want to be friends with them. And I just cannot believe that this from Casey McQuiston was a debut book, because it was astonishingly brilliant. It is a book I will read over and over. It's never ever going to go off my shelf because I love it that much. And actually I just can't wait to read it. If you have not got on this yet, what the hell are you doing? Get on this. Get on this amazing work from this debut author, and just come back and tell me how much you loved it, and we'll talk and we'll cry, because it's so beautiful and it's just amazing. Get into book number 4. And we have a series of 3 books. Now, I read all 3 books this year. Book 1 and 2 were published in previous years, and book 3 was published this year, actually just last month in November. But it is one of the most tense, dramatic, unbelievable series I think I've ever read in my entire life, and that is The Ark of the Scythe by Neil Shusterman. So it's 3 books. You've got Scythe, you've got Thunderhead, and you've got The Toll, which was the one that came out in November. 600-page beast and behemoth of a book. And if I give you just context, this is a kind of future dystopian world where the human race has beaten everything. We've beaten death, you know, we've beaten disease, we've beaten kind of hunger, we've beaten climate change, we've even beaten death. So in order to keep the population at an appropriate level, there are people ordained in different areas of different countries called Skydes. They have the power to kill people and keep the population number down. How they do it and why they do it and where they do it is usually up to them. They're given numbers, so they're semi-regulated. I can't tell you about Thunderhead and the Toll without ruining spoilers. So in Sky, our main characters, Citra and Rowan, read so many books. Citra and Rowan are both taken on to be a Skyde's apprentice and thus make their way through the Skydedom. What follows on from there is questions of morality, questions of ethics, questions of what makes us human, and it just is the most tense book. Neil Shusterman is a new author to me this year, and it has been such a joy to start with this series. Honestly, it has been just so amazing to start with this series. What I like about, one of the things I really like about Sky and Thunderhead and the Toll is that it just is on that edge of that actually, is it fiction or could this be reality? It's really on that slight edge that it's like, could this actually be our future? You know, the world we live in today, politics all over the place and kind of society changing. I find that this is a book that, God, this could actually happen. There is an element of realism to it that I don't find in any other books. And I think that is what makes Sky so much more powerful, knowing that actually, this could potentially happen. It's ridiculous, isn't it? This actually could happen. But that is why I love it. I've recommended it to so many people and so many kids in my libraries, particularly guys who haven't wanted to read. I've literally read this, it's about murder, about death and murder, and they're like, yeah! Not really, but you know, sales pitch. But this is one of those iconic series, and this is another one that will stay with me forever and ever and ever. And just hopefully that's a world we never have to face, because, man, that would be horrible. But hey, here we go, number 4. Oh my God, my top 3 books of the year. How the hell have we got here so quickly? It's just ridiculous. Now, I had so much trouble ordering these. I know I've said that already, but I had so much trouble ordering these because I kind of, what is my number 3 book? I kind of went, yeah, that's got to be the best book of the year. But then I kind of looked at like my long list of books and I was like, but what is my number 2 book? I was like, but they're really good. But my number 1 book, So just know that all 3 in particular of my top 3 have my whole heart and soul. Most of these books do, but in particular these top 3. My third best book of 2019 was actually the second book I read this year, and it was the first fiction book I read, the second book in total I read, because I read a non-fiction book first. And this was actually on my 2018 books I should have read in 2018 but didn't. That makes sense, because actually this book came out in 2018 and it was one of those ones that I said I have to read this, like as soon as 2019 starts I'm going to read this because everyone's just said it's brilliant. And why I didn't jump on it sooner I have no idea. Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I love this book so much. I haven't read it since, but even now, you know, you're kind of reflecting back on, I think I've read about 114 books this year. This still stuck out to me, and it was the second book I read. It was the second book I read. Set in a kind of futuristic version of Africa. Zélie is our main character, and she lives in a world where her ancestors and her elders used to control magic when they reached a certain age, but due to the arrival of this new king, the magic has now gone, and essentially Zélie discovers that magic can be returned and goes on an epic adventure in order to get it back so she can claim her family, you know, take down the king, claim its rights. This is your big ass action movie that you just dreamed of. Think if Black Panther, let me use this analogy. Have you seen Black Panther, the Marvel movie Black Panther? Okay, so in Black Panther, if you swapped out Black Panther's technology just for magic, and if Black Panther was a girl, you would have Children of Blood and Bone. That is how action-packed this book is. Oh God, it is that good. And what I will say about this, and one of the things that just shows off Tomi Adeyemi's skill, another debut author, this was her first book, this is ridiculous. But I think what says so much about the epicness of Tomi Adeyemi's writing is, certainly in a lot of the battle scenes in particular, I could see myself watching that on a screen. I could see myself watching the movie as I was reading it. I was sitting there going, oh my God, this would be so good as a movie. And I think hasn't it been option for TV or movie, or they're working on it certainly. But it just, even in her writing, that epic nature is just so amazing. It's absolutely unreal. And again, and it's like I mentioned with Casey McQuiston earlier, Tomi Adeyemi, this is her first book. And look at how good it is. Her first book. And look at all the plaudits it's got. I have to say, since then, at the start of December, the second book in this series, Children of Virtue and Vengeance, was published. I haven't read that yet. That potentially is going to be the first book I read in 2020. Because I need to get on it. If you haven't seen the cover for it, I'm just going to put the cover of Children of Virtue and Vengeance here. Yes to this cover. But yes, Children of Blood and Bone, so powerful, so strong, so epic, so girl power as well. I just like, yes, ladies who run the world, girls. And we're down to number 2, and this is another series, it's another world, but one that I have head over heels fallen in love with this year. And you know, the story, the characters, the fact that the author who writes these is also so awesome to follow on social media. But these, a bit like Red, White and Royal Blue, and kind of Birthday, this was one for all the best reasons. I didn't cry at this book. I cried with laughter, but I didn't cry because I was sad. Because what I love about this book is the characters and the relationships. Let me get on with this. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. Within this, although I am going to focus on the Gentleman's Guide because that is my favourite book of the kind of the world so far, I also read the Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, and I also read the novella that came out in November, which is the Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky. So you've got Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which is about Percy and his best friend Monty. Lady's Guide is about Monty's sister Felicity and her adventures, and then because in the first book, mini spoiler, Percy and Monty end up together. Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky is what happened at kind of between book 1 and the end of book 1, which was Gentleman's Guide, and before the start of Lady's Guide. It was that kind of in-between bit. Oh, this book is the most funny, sensitive, heartwarming, big hug of a book that you could possibly ever ask for. You have Percy and Monty, who are just, I believe I'm using this phrase right, correct me if not, who are my total OTPs because they are baes and they are so precious, and the love they have for each other. They start as, mini spoilers here, they start as friends and kind of then they actually both admit that actually they're really in love with each other, and it's just the cutest thing. And I'm like, oh, but then it's this, and I can't say much more because I don't want to spoil it for you. But what I loved about this is it's a book that just made me smile. I smiled, I laughed, I cried, I gasped. It was a proper kind of rom-com adventure story. And I loved that because it was this kind of tour across Europe and, you know, seeing all these sites for them and just getting to, but their relationship was what sold me on this. And I just absolutely adored it. It's a book I'm going to reread again and again and again. I have even got, if you look in some of my previous videos, you will notice I've got some t-shirts with Gentleman's Guide kind of slogans and kind of the names of all the characters on. And I'm just obsessed with it. Basically, I'm totally, utterly obsessed with it, and I want to be in their group. I want to be in that family. I want to be a Montague sibling, which I think is what Mackenzie Lee refers to it as. I loved Gentleman's Guide. I loved Lady's Guide, and actually, out of the blue, at the back end of the year, Mackenzie Lee announced we're getting another book in the Montague siblings world, The Nobleman's Guide to Shipwrecks and Scandals, I think it is, which is the baby brother from the first 2 books. I think it's about, I want to say it's about 20 years later. So the baby brother that Monty and Felicity reference in the first 2 books comes of age and goes out looking for his siblings in the 3rd one. That's out in September, and it's definitely one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I'm so excited about it. And it's just, I want to hug it, and it's so precious, and I want to give it all the love in the world, and it's just amazing. And please, please, please go and read it. If anyone has read it and loves it as much as me, please hit me up down in the comments. We will gush over it together. Okay, let's gush over it. How are we at number 1? This is ridiculous. How am I sitting here on New Year's Eve ready to talk about my top book of the year? It's just mind-blowing to me. But let's get into it. My favourite book of 2019, and this is purely based on enjoyment. It's based on enjoyment, it's based on shock factor, because on paper this is a book I should never have liked, because it's just not my thing. But from listening to the first line of the first book, I'll give you a clue, it's a trilogy. I was doing like essentially like try a chapter but I did it with like 4 audiobooks, and I got the audiobook for it, so I'd heard people mention it, and I was listening, and I listened to some audiobooks, I was like, nothing's really grabbed my attention, and I listened to the first line of the first book of this on audio, and I suddenly went, what? And I was obsessed. I tell you, obsessed. My main goal in life now is to get as many people as possible to read this series. If you've been following my channel since about mid-year when I was in like end of the year book tag and things, you might know what I'm about to say. What am I going to say? Do you want to try it down below? My favourite book of 2019 is The Nevernight Chronicles by J. Kristoff. Within this, I am including Nevernight, God's Grave, and Dark Dawn. So although only one was published in 2019, I read them all in 2019. And actually probably would have read them quicker than I did, because I read Nevernight and God's Grave in April, and then Dark Dawn didn't come out till September, so I had to wait. But literally, this series is everything I could ever wish for in a series. Like I said, on paper, I should not like this series. This is not for me. I'm not reading into, excessive gore, excessive violence, quite explicit sex scenes and stuff. But oh my God, this is one of the most sensational things, single books, one of the most sensational things I've ever read in my entire life. And I am obsessed. I am literally now obsessed. I have got so many people I work with to read this series. I'm slowly working around. Unfortunately, it's not, I get some of my 16 to 18 year olds coming to me and going, no, I love you. I've heard about this book called Nevernight. What's it like? I was going, not for you. Because it is not YA. It is certainly not YA, right, J. Kristoff? It is not YA. But what J. Kristoff manages to do with this world is so unreal. It's like otherworldly, the kind of stuff he does. I mean, our main character is Mia Corvette. When she was young, she saw her father murdered in front of her. He was hung for a crime that he didn't commit. Her mother got sent away to jail with her little brother. She has essentially lived an orphan life. And her life's goal is to get revenge on the people that did this to her mother and father. So she goes to train to become an assassin at this kind of, as part of the kind of local assassin school, I guess, the Red Church. And it kind of goes from there. There's love, there's lust, there's action, there's murder, there's blood, there's sex, there's death, there's... so good. I think one of my favourite things about it is, particularly if you've read this series and if you've read Dark Dawn, what I'm about to say will make sense to you. If you haven't, you're going to have no idea what I'm on about. But what J. Kristoff has created, this world that he has created, is like so geniusly put together. Things that are said and referred to in Dark Dawn have been foreshadowed since book 1, and you don't realise they've been foreshadowed until they're mentioned in Dark Dawn. I literally was reading Dark Dawn with my mouth on the floor because I was that stunned. It's like, I know this is a kind of, sensitive name to mention at the moment, and rightfully so, but what J. Kristoff achieves in 3 books is like Harry Potter level world building. That kind of intricacy and things being, all linked together and linked back, and you not actually realising they're linked together and linked back until you get to it and you go, oh my God, yeah, I see it now. And things coming about and the drama and the chaos and the kind of Mia's story arc, it's just everything. Am I getting this across to you, BookTube? It is, firstly, if you are not into kind of excessive violence, gore, sex, sounds great, no? Sex and kind of really into that detail, don't pick this up. I mean, just be frank with you, don't pick this up. Also, if you do pick this up, I know certainly when I started Nevernight, which was book 1, there are a lot of footnotes in this book. The footnotes are amazing and actually just show another side of awesomeness to the Dark Lord that is J. Kristoff. But the footnotes can get in the way, and at the start of Nevernight, certainly, you have 2 timelines going on that are only differentiated between, certainly in print, between standard font and italics font. it can get a little bit confusing. I think for the first 50 pages, I had to push through Nevernight, but once you got past the kind of towards the 100-page mark, it was like, oh, the most joyous rest thing I've ever. I'm even flapping my bingo wings. I'm so happy I stuck with it. So good. Audiobooks, books, best book series of the year for me by absolute miles. There you have it. Top 10 books of 2019. Ridiculous, isn't it? What do you think? Do you agree with my top 10? Have you read any of these? If you know, let me know. I'll happily chat about them with you below. Is there any of these that you now want to read or you're not sure about? Drop me some comments down below. I'd love to hear from you, BookTube. I have now been on BookTube. This video takes me to just past my 6-month mark. Where has that gone? And it's just the most joyous community to be a part of. I thank you all for welcoming me so warmly, so wonderfully. I just love this community, and I love speaking to you guys about all these amazing books that, you know, we all have access to just because we can, and it's amazing. Thank you for the most amazing 6 months, and here's to plenty more months. This has been Olivia. This has been Stagey Bookish. You have been awesome. I will see you, how weird is this to say, in 2020. See you later. Bye.